The Annapurna Circuit, a trek that has one of the highest mountain passes in the world, and we, as a group of 4, had set out to conquer this pass, but only 3 out of 4 of us survived the pass. Well, that sounds like somebody died. Nobody died, but as a group of 4, we attempted to make it through to one of the highest mountain passes at the highest altitude any of us had ever been to. This was our group.
It's not dying today.
Cheers, buddy. What day are we on? Doing alright there, girl. Welcome to traveling with me, right, Leo?
I'll let you know when it's gonna happen.
Evan likes things up his butthole.
Sorry, what did you just say to me? Our trekking adventure would take us through some of the most beautiful parts of Nepal, the Annapurna Circuit. It was going to take us almost 2 to 3 weeks, and that was because we had a few different things that we had to do along the way before we could get to the highest mountain pass. And one of the first decisions that we made on this trek was to take the route that not every traveler decided to. Now let me explain a little bit about why this route we took was less traveled. Many years ago, before the Annapurna Circuit became very popular, before it became one of the most popular trekking destinations for tourists in Nepal, there used to be just one way to get to a place called Manang. Manang was a base camp for the Annapurna Circuit where you could acclimatize, you could adjust to altitude, and you could go and do this trek up into the Throng La Pass and do that highest altitude pass. But in the past, the only way to get to Manang was to trek there, was to hike there. But in the last few years, in recent years, they built a jeep track that you could pay people to drive you along up to Manang and avoid almost 60% of this trek into the high altitude. So we did have the option to take a jeep all the way from the bottom up to Manang, up to the place where many other trekkers start. But what you don't realize is some of the most beautiful views, some of the most beautiful parts of the hike are along that way. And because we had a bit more time to do this hike, we decided to trek the entire Annapurna Circuit, something that not every tourist does. And what we discovered along that trek was truly amazing. The first day was already an absolute adventure. We ended up staying in a place a little bit off the beaten track, and I think you get a much different experience when you're, with people that don't have access to a large pool of tourists. They treat you a lot better and they make you feel like family. It was really inspiring to see. At the beginning of our trek, we were immediately introduced to the people of Nepal, and we were immediately introduced to the people that had once had a lot more trekkers on their route. Ever since that jeep road had been built, it had taken a lot of business away from the tea houses along the way, because once upon a time, trekkers used to have to go through all of these different checkpoints, all these different spots to get to Manang and then to get to the Throng La Pass. But now, since they had this jeep track, most trekkers decided to save time and get driven all the way to Manang, missing all these tea houses along the way, missing the opportunity to spend money on food, missing the opportunity to spend money on the shelter, missing the opportunity to stimulate the local economy as it went up to Manang. Instead, all of that money and all the tourists just went directly to Manang. And so what happened was, along the way, a lot of these tea houses that we stopped at, we talked to the owners and they told us that these places had once been visited at a much higher rate than they were right now. We truly saw how much this had impacted their local economies. And the first night was no different than the rest that we would see along the way. A man that had taken one of the local buses to the beginning of the trek actually had offered us a place to stay in his tea house. He had overheard us talking on the bus about where we were going and what we were going to do, and he decided to hop on that opportunity and invite us into his tea house. And that is where we had a truly first experience with what this was going to be like. It was rugged, it was simple, but it immediately felt like we were a part of the family. It immediately felt like they were taking care of us and they wanted to see us succeed with what we were doing. The energy and the excitement that was building inside of us was carried over into the host as he continued to show us his property with land disputes that he told us between him and his brother.
Since my father passed away, my property is divided.
Okay.
This is of my brother, and So, but I'm doing all the farming and all the way like to that, the last one.
Goats that he had proudly gained, but some of them were acting up.
He's very naughty. He always want to have a. He likes to fight.
Snail.
Wow.
Yes, sir. But I don't eat snail either. But it always it is very watery inside. And
And he introduced us to his family and showed us how they live and how things work. And it was fascinating and it was exciting. And this was just the beginning. And we continued on. The lowlands of the Annapurna circuit with some of the most beautiful green rice fields, valleys. It was incredible sights at almost every single turn. And this was before the snow came. So as we're going through, we imagined the snow-capped mountains, we imagined the desolate, cold, freezing places. But in this part of the trek, we had the beauty, we had the greenery. And each day as we continued moving further and further up the Annapurna circuit, there was only a couple times where we ran into other trekkers. There wasn't a ton of other people that had decided to take this hike all the way from the base up to Manang and spend that extra time really seeing all of the Annapurna circuit. So in our group, we continued to go further and further on. There's beautiful little hidden gems along the whole path. We would only spend one night in each location, so we had to take advantage of everything that was in the area. There was hot springs that we went to, hidden valleys, and cool little spots that you could stop for lunch along the way. But let me explain our trekking. We did it almost every single day. We would wake up early in the morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
And hike all through the day until right around evening time, right before the sunset is usually when we would stop. And our days could be anywhere from 10 miles all the way to 20 miles, depending on how hard we pushed. So each day we were extremely exhausted by the end of it. Right, Leo?
Yep.
And there was only one thing that helped us get through it, and that was Dalbot. Now, what is Dalbot, you might be asking? Dalbot is a local traditional food in Nepal, and it is the #1 provider of energy, life, sustenance, excitement, and fullness for trekkers. So what was Dalbot? Dalbot has a few different parts to it. So there's a rice component to the dish, there's a curry, like a vegetable curry component to the dish, there's some pickled or fermented veggies as well, and depending on where you are, where you get it, there's many other little things that you can add to accentuate or personalize this Dalbot. But on this trek, we ate so much of this Dalbot, because if you order a Dalbot, you can get as many free refills on this Dalbot as you can eat. And if you've been trekking for 15 miles that day, eating as much food as you can is crucial to success and crucial to keeping your energy up. So we ate so much Dalbot. It was exciting. It was incredible. This was the beginning of our trek, and we were having such a blast. Hey, buddy. Come on. You guys got it. Just walk around. You'll be okay. You don't do anything to you. Come on. The first few days going through the beautiful parts of the Annapurna circuit blew us away, and we continued to push on and on and on and kept going and going. Started way down there, made our way all along that trail, through the village, along, and now we're here, up at the top of the beautiful mountains. Until finally we could make it to Manang. It took us 5 days, but we finally arrived in Manang, what is essentially the last city or the last village in the Annapurna circuit before you go and do the pass. In order to prepare for that elevation, we're gonna have to do a few day treks. So we're gonna go to the highest lake in the world, and we're gonna do a few other trips to prepare ourselves, because as you can tell, my body's not prepared. I just walked up this little hill. I'm already out of breath. Hopefully, everything goes okay. But when we got to Manang, we learned something that would change our entire trip, that would change our entire plan for how we were going to tackle this highest altitude pass that any of us had ever done. There was one major issue, and we had to figure out how we could solve it.